Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1407 of our daily content grind. So it is time for another Here's 10, my not technically top 10 series, it's just 10 examples of a particular thing. And today we are talking about Beast Wars Megatron, one of my favorite iterations of the character, potentially one of the best Megatrons we've ever had. Why? Because every now and then, his plans actually succeeded. Even if he lost the day or the Maximals eventually won, the things he set out to do, the goals that he wanted, actually succeeded. And that plays a huge part in giving him the credibility that a villain really needs. So, we're going to take a look at an entire litany of victories he accomplished during his time. So, without further ado, here are 10 times Beast Wars Megatron won. I'm going to start on a really big one, but it's on the list because of a technicality, and that is the conquering of Cybertron. Now, technically, this is Beast Machines. Writing-wise, different character. Chronologically, same character. It's not happening within the confines of Beast Wars, but it was Beast Wars Megatron who conquered the entirety of the planet of Cybertron before becoming a Vehicon. So I'm counting it on that level, because frankly, it's one of the biggest villain wins in the history of the series. Yeah, Primal eventually beat him 26 episodes later, but it doesn't take away from the fact that Megatron managed to defeat the entire planet controlled by the Maximals. G1 Megatron didn't manage to do that. He needed whole armies to even, break even with the Autobots. This guy did it solo, which I don't buy storyline-wise, but you know what? That's how Beast Machines went. So, yeah, it's not a Beast Wars accomplishment, but it's the same character, so I'm throwing in the list just because someone will correct me otherwise. But it is one of his victories. It's his biggest victory. It's just not in Beast Wars. This one is low on the list because it might have been accidental, but it does shift the Beast Wars dramatically, and that is disabling the Axelon. So this was when he tried to fake the deaths of the Predacons in order to lull the Maximals into a false sense of security, only to raid the Axelon and try to take them on directly, as they were lifting off to fly home to Cybertron. Yeah, in the course of the battle, his tail weapon did get lodged into the computer, dropping the Axelon back down to Earth. Now, this could have been an accidental thing. His weapon could have just gone flying during the fight, but even an accidental win is still a win. And this is Beast Wars Megatron we are talking about. I really wouldn't put it past him to have done it as a last resort, just for the sake of handing the Maximals a defeat. Now, this is a Maximal plot that Megatron did stop. And if it was done in an accidental way that an Autobot defeated a Decepticon, you would still count that too. So in the same way that Mirage stopping the Autobot or Decepticon shuttle in the G1 series, I'm going to count this as Megatron stopping the Maximal ship, meaning the Axelon cannot fly around the planet, it cannot fly back to Cybertron, takes a massive advantage away from the Maximal. So I think it counts. And yeah, if this hadn't happened, it would have colored the Beast Wars very differently. So yeah, that's a win. Here's one that shows just how cold and quick thinking this Megatron can be. And that is the capturing of Rampage. Keep in mind, Rampage was completely uncontrollable by any normal Maximal means. When he went out of control, he took a lot of people out with him. Poor Colony Omicron. But Megatron's method, after learning about Rampage and the Immortal Spark, he immediately figured out a way of actually subduing him, keeping him under control. And yeah, he carried it out quickly, and it worked. And for it, he got one of the strongest fighters that landed on the planet. He got one of the strongest Transformers in the series. Now, this would be higher, but Rampage's menace really did diminish as the series went on, until eventually we had Maximal strong enough to one-on-one him. But in the moment and for Season 2, it was a pretty huge accomplishment to be able to wrangle Rampage into being a Predacon. So one of those shifts in the balance of power moments, because it did put the Predacons on course to outnumbering the Maximals. Kind of important in a conflict. So yeah, winning Rampage, yeah, I will count that as a victory. That's a really, really good thing for him to accomplish. Now, some of these on this list can be construed as, well, that didn't actually work out. That wasn't a victory in the end, but again, we are going for things that he set out to do and accomplished. And even if that didn't lead to, like, evil triumphing at the end of the episode, it still qualifies him as actually getting things done and actually succeeding in his plans. Hence, we are talking about creating Transmetal 2. After Transmetal became an accidental thing in the Beast Wars, he found a way of actually making it intentional. Between his own technological genius and some salvage parts from all the alien Vok wreckage, he manages to create something that can actually artificially make transmetals, and they're actually more powerful than the original transmetals. Kind of terrifying. And yeah, he clones Dinobot, brings back his once, disloyal soldier, into just a half-mindless killing machine. Yeah, this was big. This was big because this opened up a lot of new potentials. Obviously, yes, Transmetal 2 Cheetor became a thing because of this same action, but that was an incidental. He wanted to make a clone of Dinobot to get more troops. That's exactly what he did. So, Megatron, yeah, that is an accomplishment. That is one more on the scoreboard. The agenda and the following episode, Optimal Situation, shows just how calculating Megatron really is, just how he can stay one step ahead of everybody else in order to accomplish his goals. But it also shows how ingenuitive he can be. This is the Tricking of Ravage. Ravage was dead set on actually capturing Megatron and bringing him back to the Tripredix Council and leaving nobody else alive on his way out. Yeah, that didn't happen. Megatron has aces upon aces up his sleeve, and he had the right one to manipulate Ravage into not only abandoning his mission, but assisting him in his own, trying to ultimately destroy the original Optimus Prime so the Decepticons could win. That's a pretty big thing to do. Keep in mind, Ravage was an X-Factor. Megatron was already in the midst of manipulating the Maximals and Black Arachnia to his ends so he could gain access to the Ark. But Ravage, that wasn't in the plan. So at that point, he was winging it. And by winging it, yeah, he turned the tide of this fight really, really quickly. And it's what led to some of the bigger things that he accomplished in Season 3. We'll get to those in a bit. But for now, yeah, it's a pretty good thing. It's a pretty impressive thing, really, to be able to take someone as stoutly loyal as Ravage and actually get him to see things your way. We just talked about how Season 2 ended. Let's talk about how Season 1 ended, because this is one of the ballsiest finales I have ever seen to a season. Like, you have really got to be confident you are getting a Season 2 before you pull something like this. Killing Optimus Primal. The villain actually managed to kill the main hero of the show. Just flat out telling him before he did it, you lose. Primal did come back to life a few episodes later. Again, this is something Megatron set out to do, and he accomplished it. Doesn't, it might have gotten diminished later on, but yeah, this was the plan, and the plan worked. And again, this is one of those plans that manipulated pretty much everybody around him, his own soldiers, the Maximals, putting them in a position of, oh yeah, I want a ceasefire, just to give him time to prep, figuring out Tarantulas' scheme with the stasis pod, and then, because remember, if it hadn't been Primal, he would have loved to have blown up one of the arachnids in the process of doing this. Either way, everything was plotted out by Megatron. Everything went exactly the way he planned. The only thing he couldn't plan for was the completely unexplainable or unpredictable, like, fishing somebody's spark out from the Matrix before it reaches it. Either way, this was a huge cliffhanger and a huge win for Megatron. For a few episodes, the Maximals were leaderless, and yeah, we'd never seen that in Transformers before. It's kind of a cool thing to witness. So Megatron's entire plot for the end of Season 2 going into Season 3 leads to him being able to do a lot of things that end up in his favor. One of the biggest things was stealing the spark of G1 Megatron. So he might have been chased off by the other Maximals for the fight, but what he wanted was the same kind of power upgrade that Optimus Primal had enjoyed. The difference here is that he made himself an even bigger threat by keeping the spark of Megatron rather than putting it back after his mutation, meaning he was now technically holding a hostage, and while killing G1 Megatron probably wouldn't have been the worst idea, there was no way they could risk the flow of time. They had to make sure that time went on as originally intended, so now Megatron made himself invincible. You could not kill Transmetal 2 Megatron, or you were basically dooming the entirety of the time stream. Kind of a huge deal there. And yeah, he made himself incredibly powerful in the process. Transmetal 2 Megatron battled Optimal Optimus twice, one-on-one in the series, and both times, Megatron was easily getting the upper hand on Optimal. It's a pretty significant thing to witness. Yeah, it was a good power upgrade. It shifted the power of the Beast Wars dramatically. I don't think people realize it's as big as it was. So yeah, something was, it's funny, like Beast Wars had such a good way of writing in things like, oh, well, we're making a new toy, so figure it out in the plot, and then turning it into something like this that just makes an already threatening Megatron 10 times more threatening. Just his existence was now a threat, but you also couldn't end the existence. Quite the dichotomy. And yeah, that's this Megatron for you. Now, Optimal's situation did leave Megatron ultimately defeated. He did not gain access to the Ark. He did not successfully kill Optimus Prime as he wanted to. But this was also an example to show that he was capable of coming up with backup plans upon backup plans. Again, staying one step ahead of everybody. So when every Maximal was dedicated to stopping Megatron from entering the Ark, that left the Axelon completely unguarded. Rampage stays behind, simply to drag it off of its pedestal on the rocks and drop it into the sea, destroying the Maximal home base. So even if Megatron could not destroy Optimus as intended, he still took advantage of the situation to lay an enormous blow against the Maximals, one that had them on the back foot for all of Season 3. That's pretty good, not going to lie. Usually you're so used to like the cartoon villain just getting his comeuppance at the end of the episode and going like, well, yeah, I guess we're going to try again next time. Not this Megatron. Not this Megatron. Even in defeat, he found a way of claiming a victory. And while, yeah, having Optimal Optimus was not the best situation for him, destroying a major tactical advantage, that does a lot. That does a lot. It shifts everything in the series. The Maximals are stuck in a defensive position for the rest of the series. And speaking of, the Maximal base was something of a safety net. It just felt like that if that was in play, everything would be okay. The Maximals could retreat, and then Sentinel could activate shields, start firing autocannons, and they got bailed out so many times for that. And then Megatron decided, well, what's good for the goose is good for me. I'm taking it. Changing of the guard was a rare episode where, yeah, there's no real arguing it. The Predacons won. They did exactly what they wanted to, and the episode was left off on a feeling of, oh no. It is the episode where the Maximals gain Depth Charge's loyalty, which was something that they've been after for a few episodes, and that's important. That leaves the Maximals with a little bit of a win, so they're not completely out of it. But Sentinel is the thing that bailed out the Maximals so many times in the first 2 seasons. To lose that safety net means that they are stuck in a defensive position in front of the Ark, just to make sure Megatron does not destroy history as they knew it. And that does mean they can't really leave the base the way they would like to. Someone always has to be on ready, on guard. It puts them in a very tense position where out in the field, they can't possibly be at full power. Without Sentinel, that means there's no like full departure of the Maximals from the base. They're always going to be limited. And now with the dark side having Sentinel, there's no way for them to directly attack them anymore. Megatron is completely guarded. Between that and having Megatron spark later on, there was no touching him at that point. That left him in such an advantageous position. If it wasn't for Tigerhawk, yeah, that's a spot where you eventually win the Beast Wars. If the series had gone on longer than that, this could have been enormous. Now, throughout this list, you could usually argue that, well, that's not really a win because eventually Megatron did lose, Well, the Transmetal 2 driver also created Cheetor and Black Arachnia's upgrade, so that's not really a win. Yeah, he got Sentinel, but they only used it once for the rest of the series, and that was an ineffective attempt to stop Tigerhawk. Okay, fine. So the schemes didn't ultimately pan out in a victory. But at the moment, yeah, they were wins. So I'm going to leave you off on a win that is completely undeniable and changes everything in the Beast Wars. And that is the destruction of the Maximal probe. Or more specifically, the radar to contact the probe. So this was season 1, and the Maximals were in a spot where they had the chance to contact Cybertron directly. They were looking for them, and there was a probe in orbit on the planet. All they had to do was get a signal to it. That is it. Megatron was wise to this, did everything he could to stop them, and did so. Thanks to a transformation lock device that Tarantulas came up with, something we'd seen in Transformers before, so it's kind of reusing old tech. I don't mind that callback. It was just the right thing though to stop the Maximals. And yeah, the last hope they had of actually contacting Cybertron, up in flames. Megatron won. There was no thing at the end of the episode of like, oh, well, we didn't get him this time, but look at what we've gained in the process. There was no like new ally that joined up. There was no bright side. This was 100% a defeat. The Maximals had to eat a defeat that could have ended the Beast Wars immediately. So yeah, this is the win that changes everything. It's very early, and it shows that Megatron can beat the Maximals at their own game. That's pretty big to making a character believable as a villain. Giving them that kind of win that early shows you just how villainous and effective this Megatron could be. And that's how you make a good villain. And that's going to be the list. So there's a few little other things you could take, and yeah, there's some here you could disqualify, but that's still a much better record than a lot of Megatrons have. This Megatron got things done, and it just made him into a better threat every time he did. It's why he is one of the most menacing of Megatrons, even if he's not the most, stereotypically evil, even if he doesn't have, like, the grandest scheme every time. What he does plan is incredibly effective. And because you hand him wins like this, every now and then you think he might actually do it. So there's my take on the wins of Megatron. Tell me your favorite in the comments below. I don't think I missed any major ones, but yeah, I think these are worth talking. So thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.